John, you too? John.
Yeah, a little bit.
John Byron.
Yes.
Terry, grab
John Byron.
Well, both, I mean, you just have to realize that people
John, we're going to start.
public don't want to listen to hour-long presentations on lots of stuff.
Okay. So I want to start by finishing up. Any questions from the committee? Any questions or comments? At this point, we're ready to open it to public comment and question. And so we'll need folks so the home audience can also hear, to come to the mic. By our bylaws, we limit these to 3 minutes each. So please try not to be too repetitive in terms of the points you're making. We still have quite an agenda left. And with that, there was a gentleman over there that kept raising his... Oh, there he is.
I'd love to make.
So he will kick it off.
Sure. My name is Scott Hoffman. I live in Satellite Beach. I actually live on the Grand Canal. And I appreciate the gentleman's opinion that this committee's about nitrogen removal and not about the bacteria.
And I support Courtney's excellent rejoinder.
However, and I agree with her in the sense of a rejoinder, because as a taxpayer, if you don't make the lagoon safe for humans, this committee and these funds are not going to be available to support the greater picture, which is to save the overall lagoon. So as we speak, I want to put an emotional face on this, and I appreciate your great presentation. I first learned about this by riding my bicycle by Anchor Lane and smelled the horrible smell, and then found out what was going on. As of yesterday, the pumps are pumping. You can see fecal matter flowing down Anchor Canal. You can see fecal matter in the Grand Canal in front of my house. You can see it collecting around my dock. And there's a big sign right on South Patrick leading to Anchor Canal which says, "The water is contaminated, do not fish, swim, drink, be in any of this water." And I wonder why they didn't put those signs all the way around the houses on the Grand Canal, and I know why, because there would be such a public outcry that it would be unbelievable. This woman said, "Oh, well, why don't people during the hurricane have their porta potty?" Well, because nobody would want that, and they didn't want the sewage to back up into people's homes, so they made my house a cesspool by pumping water into the Grand Canal. So we have, very nice waterfront homes that are now a cesspool. Everybody in here winced when they said they were going to make the soccer field a collection pool. Well, instead they made the lifeblood of Florida, which is our waterways, a cesspool. And when the tourists find out that we have water that you can't swim in, you can't paddleboard in, you can't touch, a dermatologist recently sent out an email that said, these are the bacteria that you get from being in the water, and if you get these sores, immediately come in, because these are akin to flesh-eating bacteria. This problem really needs to be addressed. And whether the funds here get address it or we legislate funds, I think it's important to put a flashlight on this and solve the ongoing pollution that goes on for year after year. Granted, it only happens every 2 or 3 years, but then it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks. I think this committee has the public attention to, one, legislate. So I know if I fertilize in front of the Grand Canal, I get fined. So if people are dumping rainwater into the sewage system, they should be fined. We shouldn't give them incentive programs to stop dumping. We should fine them if they have their gutters connected to the drains. Now, my final question is, the gentleman over here talked about pumping slurry 20 miles. Why can't we put a temporary pipe in and pump this sewage on the mainland and create somewhere in the ranch area a holding area instead of dumping it in our beautiful lagoon? And I think my time's up.
Mark? Do you want to respond to his question?
The question of
Mike,
pumping
please.
slurry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, pumping slurry 20 miles, just like you would Muck.
Well, also the presenter talked about finding right-of-way for the pipeline. That would be one matter. Crossing the lagoon and creating an obstacle to navigation is another matter. So it can, I suppose it could be done. But again, you know, that's a huge technological challenge.
Is it as big a technological challenge as finding 12 acres in the beachside? I mean, the gentleman over here talked about moving dredge slurry 20 miles. So it seems like you could put a pipe underneath the O'Galley Causeway and run the pipe up.
Well, the utility already has a pipe, a 13-mile long pipe that runs from Patrick Air Force Base to Melbourne Beach. And that's the pipe that's used to pump the wastewater to the treatment plant.
So why couldn't you put a second pipe in so that instead of piping it directly into the canal, you just connect to another pipe and pipe it? It's an 8-inch pipe that's piping into the lagoon right now.
Well, actually, the discharge to the lagoon was stopped October 10th.
So the pump's running yesterday.
Yeah, it's pumping into a retention pond.
And that retention pond is so high, it flows right into the canal.
Well, no, it's not.
Point of order, can we just have public
Yeah.
comment
I'm sorry.
and we'll respond to all of them after the public comment's over
Yes.
with? This
Okay.
back and forth is it's going to be very distracting.
Okay,
Or not
good.
respond.
We've got
Or not
questions
respond,
from
yeah,
Cal.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Carol, are you timing these? Okay, good. So the gentleman there.
I won't be very long. I basically have just one question. I'm Michael Dana. I live on Lansing Island, Indian Harbor Beach. You know, we have this wonderful fund now to dredge out and fix, but does it make sense to be putting in at the same time? Doesn't. That's my question. Why wouldn't we fix the pipes first with the station? You know, we're in a situation now in the economy where if you need a $50 million station to fix this thing, it's awful easy to get a municipal bond right now and put that out. My firm is a financial firm that we manage a lot of municipalities, by the way. And I just think it's so viscerally bad when you see raw sewage going by your house. I can't begin to tell you what that looks like. And it's awful. And, you know, we have some pretty nice houses where we are, and that just kind of takes it out. Not to mention, you can't dare go in the water. I'm a cyclist, and we have triathletes. You want to go swimming in this? No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go this side of the room and then come back to you. Right there.
Hi, I'm Lori Logue, and I live in Satellite Beach. And I'm just taking all this in for the first time. I hear about it just through neighbors and things. But seeing that the gist of the problem is all the rain flow that we have during the hurricanes getting into our sewage system, and trying to think about small things that we could do to maybe relieve that. I know in my neighborhood, the homes are in the 60s, people are adding on, a lot of them are on the water, and they have to provide a provision now when you add on to your home that you drain the roof flow forward and not let it run into the canal. And I'm wondering, wouldn't it be less of a burden if the water's just coming off the roof and going into the canal rather than going forward into the streets, seeping into the sewage system and overflowing it that way? Even if it was just a temporary lift on this provision, so it would take less strain off the sewer systems until those can get fixed. And maybe if you do that, you also say during these heavy rain months, you're limited to pesticides and who can spray what on their lawns as that water does go into the lagoons. I don't know, it's just something I kind of turned the wheels while sitting there, and I thought it's worth mentioning, so,
Okay.
thanks.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Joe Howard. I'm a resident of Satellite Beach, and I work for State Representative Randy Fine. I'm his legislative aide. I wanted to thank Ms. Barker and her team. They've been in our office a number of times, as well as the Marine Resource Council. Representative Fine is passionate about helping with the Indian River Lagoon and finding long-term solutions. And I wanted to let everybody know here that our office stands ready to assist wherever we can, whether it be helping move the process along through the DEP. In fact, we've got several meetings with them next week when we're in Tallahassee, as well as the Department of Health, to talk about some of the issues of the raw sewage going into the river and the problems that it creates, as well as talking about streamlining the permitting processes for advanced septic tank systems. So we're working on a number of fronts, as well as funding allocations to go to the county wherever we can find the appropriate use of state funds. So our office stands ready to assist wherever we can, and thank you for having us.
Thank you. Okay, in the blue shirt?
Thank you for your time. My name is TJ Marshall. I live in Indy Atlantic. Just had a couple of points to bring up. The first one, the presentation, will that be posted online, or how can we get a copy of that?
The entire video of this is posted online. I don't know how quickly SCG TV gets it posted online, but we can also get you the PowerPoint faster if
Okay,
that
wonderful.
doesn't happen quickly.
So just doing some simple math with that South Beach's wastewater treatment facility, from what you said, the average, that they do per day and what the capacity is, that facility is just over 80% capacity. And we know we have these events, and we know we have a climate change issue. It seems this body is allowed to make recommendations to your commission, and the issue of needing more capacity on the beach seems to be an issue if you're already at 80% capacity. So it does seem within your power to make a recommendation to the county commission. I think that helps the utilities division to be able to express their voice of this is what we need to do when they have additional bodies that weigh in and say, we think these are good ideas. The other issue is that it seems appropriate to be incorporating into your analysis the nitrogen loading or some type of estimator for two critical things. One is DEP and EPA, any utility that has a leak has to report those. So that's a thing that's constantly there. And those can be referenced at any time. And you saw the quick math that was done here. I think that should be something that you guys should see each time, so you have an idea. The last newspaper report I had seen was estimating sewage spills by county in 2015. Every other county, St. Lucie was the highest other county at 1.2 million gallons. Brevard was at 24 million across the whole county. So as a county, we got a problem. And I think if you can get an estimate from those reports of what that nitrogen loading means, that branches into this other part. If you have sewage going into a canal and that's going out into the river, you're going to have a site where the distribution of that can get into, I'm a fisherman, John's a fisherman, we've been communicating over the Florida Sportsman Network. Does that get into sensitive areas that you can't really dredge, or do you have an outflow area that now some of that's going to immediately settle into and you do have an area you can dredge? So you have some points that you can take care of on there. The other big issue, though, I think, and this was when Dr. DeFries spoke to the county commission during the fish kill, was he called it the 30-30-30 problem. It was 30% of your problem is stormwater, 30% of your problem is leaching. And the Orangeburg issue and the leaching, I know we've spoken over email, there's microbes that eat that stuff. Nature works that way. So once you stop it, it should disappear, but 30% of your problem in the lagoon is this leaching, and finding some matching cost measures to get homeowners to stop that. seems critical. Thanks for your time.
So while you call up the next speaker,
Yeah.
today's meeting video will be posted by 4 o'clock today.
Okay, great. Straight back.
Good morning, I'm Mark Regan, City Manager, City of Eden Harbor Beach, ground zero for the sewage discharge. A couple of comments, if I may, and I'll be brief because I've recognized that some of this is not the purview of this committee, and I understand that. Indian Harbor Beach and Satellite Beach collectively hired a consultant to look at muck, and looked at muck into the canals of our communities. In Indian Harbor Beach, we found 183,000 cubic yards of muck. That's before the organics were added to the canal. Now we have organics. Who knows how much we have. The second issue is it's impacting homes, as you're hearing from the residents. It's also impacting businesses. I had a business owner yesterday tell me he had to send his employees home because of the odors and health concerns near that discharge. Secondly, we have a daycare center 270 feet away from where the discharge into the retention ponds occur. I'm hearing from them as well. There's health concerns. Also, before this whole issue came to light, I had hired a consultant to do some baseline testing of the water quality so that when I come to you for baffle boxes and other items to clean the lagoon, I have a baseline of the water quality, and I can tell you how much of the nutrients I remove and don't remove. That testing began in September, and we are now told preliminarily our dissolved oxygen is little to none in the canals. Can you say fish kill? Thank you.
Okay. Right over there, and then Lisa.
I'm Rick Dormany. I'm a new resident of Satellite Beach. Obviously, I didn't do my research before I moved. $50 million for a new water treatment. What does it take to get the county to start the research on how much it costs per resident to build that? I mean, that seems like a logical solution. It's at 80% capacity now, correct? We've got 2 giant condos going in across from Publix and a new development going in by Hightower. So that 80% is going to be a little higher. So what do we need to do to get a per resident cost to get a water treatment facility? And who starts that? Can this committee start that?
No, that's not within the.
This committee can't go to the county commission and ask for that to be done.
Recommendation.
A recommendation.
Madam Chairman, if I could just make a comment that bears on this gentleman's excellent point and recognizes both also the excellent comment that Courtney Barker made. This is a matter, obviously, of keen public interest. We've got 2 TV stations here, and this is a matter that's got a lot of people excited. It strikes me that the county manager and the county commission should have a workshop on this issue, bring all the county departments in, bring the budget people in, and have the 5 commissioners there who allocate resources to hear it. I think it's wonderful we're having this discussion now, but I think it needs to happen again, and I think it needs to happen in what I regard as a far more appropriate venue, which is a commission workshop with the entire county staff represented, rather than this Save Our Indian River Lagoon Oversight Committee, whose duties are rather narrow. And to the Assistant County Manager, sir?
John.
Sir? A response?
Well, certainly you could make a request to the board to have that workshop.
I'm not going to make any request at all.
Well, and I'm quite confident that the commissioners are looking at this. I can tell you I've been in contact with Commissioner Smith practically on a daily basis about this. And so I'm sure that we're going to be looking at practically every option that is out there and identifying the costs, and it will get broken down into costs, not just the bulk costs, but then what does that mean in terms of rate-paying issues that would arise. So much of what you're suggesting I'm sure, is going to be occurring. I can't tell you that we'll have a workshop on it. The board will make that decision, but it wouldn't surprise me.
So your commitment is that, from your viewpoint, you will carry forward to Frank a recommendation that there be some venue created for the public to come in and express themselves on this matter and to consider the options. Yes, no?
I'll communicate with the county manager, and I'm quite confident that we're going to wind up having some sort of discussion about it at the board level. I don't know exactly when that's going to be. It could be, I know we have some open workshop dates, and so it could easily become a workshop item, and I would expect it would. But
could you give us a break and have it happen before our November meeting?
I don't think I can commit to that.
Thank you, sir.
That's
Lisa.
not acceptable. That's not acceptable. We're here serving the county. We're here serving the citizens.
As a workshop, the board.
We're here serving the county staff, work with it very well and very effectively. I'd like to hear a response back that the county staff, you represent the county manager, will take responsibility for creating a venue to hear from the public on this issue.
I'm sure we will.
Not I'm sure we will, yes. Please, will you commit to creating, to carrying forward the county manager a recommendation that a venue be created and soon to hear from the public on this issue?
Okay.
I think it's difficult for John to speak on Frank's behalf, number one. But number two, I think, if we want that to happen and we want to make that request to the county commissioners, so we just need to make a motion and make that recommendation.
Yeah.
Is to say, we're, as a body, this issue affects our work, and we recommend that you move forward to schedule a workshop or some other venue for the public to come, and that you look at alternatives, cost them out, and make a decision that will solve this problem. And we don't really care what that solution is, as long as it solves the problem. That's your purview, but we want the problem solved. And I think making a motion to that effect is completely appropriate for this body.
I make a motion to that effect.
Second.
Okay.
Carol, you got that?
Any more discussion on that motion?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you, Courtney.
Lisa?
I don't think that was for me, but thank you for making it back to the motion. My name is Lisa Soto. I'm the Executive Director of Marine Resources Council. We're a charitable organization that's been trying to save the lagoon since the early 80s. And us and our members passed the first Indian River Lagoon Act that disconnected the wastewater treatment plants from directly discharging into the lagoon. So it's very discouraging, 25 years later, that we're still having this problem. I do appreciate very much this committee's willingness to listen to this issue. I think that, you did go above and beyond, what you were really, I think, asked to do, to bring this forward and listen to this public comment and the outrage. I've been hearing it too. Right after the hurricane, our members started calling me outraged because they were seeing raw sewage passing by their houses, asking me questions, what can be done about this? How can we as a community respond? Expressing their frustration. We can't fertilize our lawns, and yet, the county can dump millions of gallons of sewage. It's very disheartening, and I think you know that now. I appreciate your presentation, Mark. Everybody, is trying to resolve the issue. The question that I have is, if the media, I feel like a lot of people found out about this when it finally showed up on the television. Is there a need, I know that there's a need to let DEP know that you've had an exceedance and had to report it. Is there a need to let the public know? Or when is there finally, then those signs showed up, the signs at the canal that said, raw sewage has been, there's hazardous material here, warning signs showed up. after it was on the news. Is there a requirement to let the public know, or?
They asked us to post it to Facebook, so we posted it on our Facebook page to let the community know.
Like the next day, after the report was made and filed, there was an emergency report filed, and it was posted on Facebook with all the details of it within 24 hours of the report being made.
And when was the report made?
Emergency management called us.
September something.
If you look on the Indian Harbor Beach Facebook page, I think they're the ones that posted it, so you should be able to see the date. Lisa, if you scroll, and the manager might be able to tell you what the date was, but it's still on their Facebook page. So if you go to Indian Harbor Beach and scroll up, you'll see that date where it was posted.
So there's
Brevard
not,
County Emergency management posted it, and then there's a system in which they notify us too, and so we did the same, I think, but I think Indian Harbor did the day before, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I wonder if that was just, you being proactive, or if there's a requirement.
Oh, that's just us being proactive.
So you're just being good
Stewards.
I think Brevard Management had to do it.
Emergency management?
Yeah, I think they had to do it.
All right, and then with my last 30 seconds, this is a bacteria pathogen problem. I know that you're focused on nitrogen, but some excellent points were made earlier about what we're dealing with here is actually really nasty stuff. And it is about human health. That point was made earlier. And it is going to accumulate and make more muck. So does that really make sense? I think that's a question you need to continue to think about as a committee. Thank you for your time and for all you're doing.
Thank you. Okay. So, with the long hair. And then, so we have, it looks like we have 2 more comments, or 3. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Kim Gifford. I'm a resident of Inwood Lane in Indian Harbor Beach. And in reference to this committee, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I know our concern for this particular group is specifically how it impacts the lagoon. And while we have been told that the raw human sewage has been diluted, I'd like to make a point that raw human sewage is 80% nitrogen. The grass clippings that we're worried about are 4%. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hello, my name is Dagan Ryan. I represent the Wakefield Homeowners Association. Our neighborhood is about 150 yards from the sewage pipes that are being released into the current storm retention area. In addition to the environmental impact, our families and children cannot spend time outside due to the odor being discharged from that drainage. You said that the system is below capacity for the existing population and development. Yet over a month after the last hurricane, this is still an overflow problem. If the answer is, well, it's just rained more since then, these heavy rain months happen every year for at least 3 to 4 months. And similar to what the gentleman in blue said, I would argue that the current system does not meet the current capacity during these times of the year, given the reported status of the pipes and systems. So my question is for the county engineering. What is your explanation as to why we're still having these problems so far from the last big storm?
Should I answer the question?
Well, we want to hold that. We're going to hold that and respond after we have 2 more, I think, left.
All right.
And we'll try to address some of these.
Hi, my name is Roy Toman. I'm from Titusville, Florida. Very concerned about the Indian River Lagoon and all the intercoastals as a whole. And I just want to remind this committee why they were formed in the first place is to watch the money that we fought so hard to get. And Virginia has come up with an excellent plan on how to control the problem we're having with the river at this point in time. And I just want to, I just hope that the committee keeps their eye on the ball and sticks to the plan and is not diverted by such incidences. This is a huge problem, and it definitely needs to be resolved. But I don't think it's the job of this committee to resolve it. Thanks.
Thank you. And there was one other, I believe, or not? Okay, that's it. Okay. Yes, John.
May I suggest that Mark and your staff directly respond to the individuals who've asked questions of county engineering, because it's really not within the purview of the Save Our Lagoon Committee, but that you definitely follow up with the individuals who ask specific questions.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Courtney.
I think the city manager for Indian Harbor Beach was talking about the possibility of maybe holding a workshop over in our area. So if that's something y'all want to do, we'll be glad to host you and help you organize that. I did want to just say thank you to you all for not only doing the presentation but meeting with me incessantly, and I really would like to thank the county manager, because at that point he's really made a lot of this move forward faster, and I wanted to thank him for that. And I also want to thank our county commissioner. I've been on the phone with him quite a bit too. I feel kind of bad for him because I have been bothering him a lot, but he is very committed to seeing this through, and that's Commissioner Kurt Smith. I also wanted to thank everybody that spoke today. Everyone that spoke asked a very, very great questions and offered solutions, which I sincerely appreciate. Most of them were our residents on Beachside, so thank you. And I just really appreciate that. With this type of issue, we imagine the pitchforks and really the level of professionalism everybody showed in their comments. I really appreciate that. And I'm very happy that our committee has agreed to made that motion to ask the county commission to look for a solution, because even though it's not in our purview, it affects what we do. And I know that the county utility is working very hard to address our concerns. So I think in the next couple of months we'll see some movement. And I do want the community to know that we're government, we are slow. So it's just we have a lot of requirements that we have to go through, and a lot of public comment that we have to entertain before we come up with the final solution. So if we see another rain, before we get something done, just expect what to expect. So, but you can see, I think, hopefully today, that there is a commitment on behalf of the county utility and on behalf of the committee to see some movement on the issue.
Okay. And John, earlier you had said you had a motion, but
Did you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to emphasize that the county is committed to working on this with great vigor. I can tell you that Commissioner Smith is so vigorous about this that his current situation is such that he is probably can't conveniently work on this on a daily basis, but he's doing it anyway from remote control, if you will. And he would be here right now. I'm quite confident, and he told me he would be here if he could have. But circumstances are such that he just simply cannot be here. We are looking at our capital improvements program. We're examining different options that we have to restructure it, to try to accelerate the I&I or the lining of those sanitary sewer pipes into the areas where we're having the discharges, as opposed to just what are the worst areas for I&I. We want to get it into the worst areas where I&I is resulting in a discharge, which is a different thing. Different parts of our overall system countywide have different capacities and have different challenges. So we think we have some opportunities with that. I want to thank Courtney. She has been very proactive with working with us in a partnership sort of way to try to jointly work on problems that that the city can help us with. We look forward to perhaps having more partnerships with other cities with respect to that as well. And by attacking it in the manner that we've already been attacking it in many respects, we're trying to manage the situation the best we can. If we can improve that as well as improve the long-term performance of the system, then we hope to see some significant improvements. And in fact, our goal would be to make it to where we get to no discharges. And so with that, I just say that my boss is very clear that this is the message that he wants to have out there. I fully expect, as I said earlier, to have some intensive discussions at the board level. And again, it will not surprise me at all if we have a workshop on it. I just can't schedule workshops from where I'm sitting right this moment. And so with that, I can assure you that those are the things that we have done and are doing and will continue to do.
If I could, I'd like to publicly apologize for going into my Tasmanian Devil Act for you. I wish you'd said this at the beginning rather than at the end, but I think it's a nice summary. I now have a warm, fuzzy feeling that the combination of Kurt Smith, the County Commission, Frank Abadi, you, Mark, etc., this has the full attention of the county staff, and that the people in the audience and seeing this on television that are concerned with it do know where to go, and thank you for your comments, and again, I apologize.
All right, can I make 2 comments?
Okay.
2 comments?
Yes, Vinny.
2 short comments. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It's good and nice to have a full house, and I would recommend anybody and everybody that has a comment or a suggestion to anything that's going on, email these people at the county. They are people. They will respond. If you have a suggestion on how something's going to work better, if you email it to them, they're not going to go, this is from the public, throwing it away. It may go in their spam folder, but they can't control that. Talk to Google or something. But email these people. They're people. I'm going to email Mark after the meeting with a couple suggestions that I have, because just like anyone else, we can't think of everything all the time. That was one comment. The second comment is, I know somebody questioned dredging. And as Lisa and the MRC referred to, the sewer system was dumping directly into the lagoon years ago. The dredging is to remove over 50 years of abuse to the lagoon. So I know over the past, 6 years we've had 5 incidents. Over the past 13 years we have 7 incidents. There are incidents that are taking place. But the dredging is to help the abuse of over 50 years. So just trying to put everything in perspective. We have over 50 years where we were dumping directly into the lagoon.
Okay, it's good. Mark?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Toronto for his comment and to say, call me.
Okay.
Come to my office. I'll be happy to answer any of the questions that I can. I put my contact information up on the board. Come and see me.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I think we are ready to move on next. John.
Yeah,
Yes,
before we
please.
go, I wanted to make a motion to address some of these leaky sewer pipe issues, and I think there's something we can do as part of the plan, and that's maybe to ask staff if they would bring back to us a project, a partnership maybe between Satellite Beach and the county to look at leaky sewer pipes and an incentive program for homeowners, and not like next week, but at some point in the future. I think that would be valuable, and we need to get the ball rolling now while it's still in people's minds. And so I'd like to make that motion that we request staff to do that.
Second. Stephanie seconded. Any more discussion?
Yes. I think this is an appropriate thing to put into the lagoon plan change, but I think we need to be careful to stay in our lane and not be taking on responsibilities for other departments in the county and things that are outside the purview of the stated purpose of the Lagoon Trust Fund. So it's something I certainly have full confidence in Virginia on that, and in this board for being able to look at it through that lens. So
okay.
I will vote for it, but with that caveat.
John.
If it was more more quantified, John. I think it's within what we're doing. It's similar to septic to sewer. But I think we need to understand, and the research that's going to happen down there in their demonstration projects may bring us the information that we need. But until we have more data, I am hesitant to instruct staff to look into a solution to a problem until we know the complexity of the problem. That's just me.
Yeah, the direction is for staff to come back to us with a plan, and that would be a science-based plan, and it would be funded by the IRL fund. That's the idea of it, but it's for them to come back to us.
Okay. Courtney?
We were also going to look at other funding sources too, and so we'll bring back that as well. So we may not have to, completely come back to the Lagoon tax as a source, but again, I think we want to make sure that we're basing this all on good data. So we'll bring back that first, I think, and that might be the best way to say that motion is that we bring back appropriate data on this issue and with a recommended action to the board. That might be a better.
Can we assume that's part of your motion?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you want to restate the motion then?
No.
That
Carol,
do we have that for the minutes? Stephanie?
I've said this before, but when we have new data coming in, that's the whole purpose of this committee, is to say, yes, this was the original plan, but now we have new data coming in. And I think that it's totally appropriate for us to look at other solutions other than what we have looked at before, because we now have new data coming in. And so I think this is a purview of this committee, is to continue to evaluate where we are and what the new circumstances are dictating. And so that's why I seconded the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to echo that comment. I appreciate John's efforts to keep us in our swim lane. But my sense is that you don't swim. But I mean, one of the reasons I think this is important, and one of the reasons I appreciate the people that came and shared their frustration, is that my sense is that this committee is about the preservation and restoration of the lagoon, no matter what the negative influences are. Yes, we have a plan. Yes, it's got certain categories. That plan was well thought out, a lot of great work into it, but, it's an attempt to look 10 years into the future, so it is imperfect at the get-go. So I think we should entertain these discussions. We should advocate for action to deal with the issues. I appreciate that the county is being proactive about this, so I really appreciate Courtney and all the things that she does in her venue. So that's it. I mean, we don't want to be taking actions that we don't have the charter to take action on, but I think we should be aware of the new influences, the problems that are confronting us, and be making recommendations at least. This plan is going to change. I mean, this plan, by definition, I mean, it's just certain to change, and if who knows what those changes will be, but we need to be prepared to act responsibly for the good of the lagoon. Thank you.
And I guess my only caution is, and I'm going to support John's too, is that the taxpayers did vote on this under these circumstances, under the plan as we know it, and it's really based on mostly how much bang do we get for our buck, removing nitrogen, removing phosphorus. So I think getting the information, getting data so we can make a scientific decision is sound, but I think we should also be looking at, well, maybe there's other funding mechanisms that could address this, in Satellite Beach or Indian Harbor Beach, and not take away from our funds that we have already kind of dedicated for a lot of the projects that we know we had to address.
Okay.
If I could, and this touches a broader topic that we've touched on a couple of other times. In the course of our machinations and exercising our responsibilities, we keep bumping into things that involve other parts of the county staff and other functions that reside in the county. And that coordination is something that we can't direct, we can't demand, but needs to be picked up lest we spend the tax dollars less effectively than we are. And so that's why I think it is important that we at least let the county staff know that these are things we're bumping into. And so far, there's been no pushback. So far, it's been an open door and a welcoming door that I'm aware of. If ever it should happen that that's not the case, we should be prepared to make recommendations to the county commission on taking action there.
I can tell the committee that Frank Abate's he's got a list of priorities, and the Lagoon is very high on that list.
Thank you.
And he brings it up on a very regular and routine basis, and there's not anyone in senior staff that is unaware of that, or if they are, I don't know how they could be unaware of it. And so it's very, very clear that that is a priority for the county manager.
If Virginia does a perfect job and her staff does a perfect job, the job will be incomplete without the efforts of the rest of the staff. I'm preaching to the choir. I hear that, but I think it's a point we need to keep in mind.
Okay, so let's go back to our motion. I believe we still have a motion.
Aye.
We're recommending that staff come back with data and a potential plan for addressing this issue. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the motion passes. All right, I think we are ready to move on to old business.
I move to extend the meeting by 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Yes, okay. So we're ready to move on to old business, starting with the communications update from Vinny.
Yes, so the cameras are leaving. Guys, I'm just starting to speak, really? That's terrible.
Wait, I'll put you on Facebook.
Don't want to do that.
No, we're just doing a better job.
Oh, good, yeah, that's my better side. Good.
So much for communication.
Exactly. So I will be quick. I'll be brief. The website.
Okay, let's have some quiet in the room.
As I stated before, the website, the new design is up. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at it. There are still some bugs and layout issues we're working on, but it does adapt much better to a mobile device, which more and more people are using to get their information on. So that is good. We've also updated the contract numbers, the dollar numbers, the total nitrogen numbers are up to date. And I will just as I know we were talking about 1,800 pounds of nitrogen being added due to the waste discharge. But this past week, I edited the thermometer, the gauge that we have for total nitrogen, and I added about 1,400 maybe, and I literally moved the arrow up 1 pixel. Like if you looked at it, you would not be able to see it jump. So again, I'm going to agree that any sewage in the lagoon is a bad thing, but if you were looking at the total overall, and you looked at that needle moving up 1,800, it would be indiscernible to the eye on our website. But anyway, so the website stuff's going. As Virginia said, we did get a beta version of the application online. The hope is that if we can't get it to use for this time, again, we'll have within a year full access as well as saving their progress, hopefully. So people can enter it more than twice. Virginia said the 5th person who's hired starts October 23rd. That is going to be the Facebook and social media person. So once they come on, we'll go ahead and get them through the county requirements to get them involved in social media. And then we'll start doing posts for this body as well as other things to drum up an audience. And then that way when we send stuff out, you guys can share it. It'll all be shared. It'll be a beautiful, wonderful world of sharing. Yes, Daniel.
Can our meetings go on Facebook Live?
That is a question that I don't know. I don't believe the county does any Facebook Live meetings from the county level. Obviously, anyone in the audience could, but you need direct audio, unless otherwise you may be stretching. So I don't know. I don't know from a legal issue, but that would be a question that we'd have to ask the county.
Just thought I'd throw it out there,
I
since I
think
can't
it's-
talk to you.
Well, I know. I think it's a great suggestion, and I will bring it up if it isn't already. They're listening. They listen in when we talk, in case anyone didn't know. So I'm sure that they've dotted it down, Don and his staff, so we can see about that. The meetings are added onto Facebook after they are recorded. It's not Facebook Live, but it is on the Brevard County Facebook page, these meetings. And that's the only way, if you have a mobile device, you can see it, because the county's SGC, ABC, EDFG, that website is not accessible for mobile devices. I also saw Don walking in here between our break, and I extended the request from, I think, John, did you do it last month, or someone did it, asking if we could have our meetings so you can click on an agenda item, and it will jump to it. I asked Don not more than 30 minutes ago if he could do that, and he said he would, right, Don? Which camera are you on? No, I'm just kidding. He said hopefully that will, they'll look into doing that, which will make our meetings easier to be viewed. So I think that's really about it for this
Okay.
month.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move on to the field trip.
Can you move to Satellite Beach so I can put you on one of my boards?
I love Indialantic. I'm sorry, Courtney.
Okay, the field trip, we talked about this last time, and the consensus was that you didn't want it to be a meeting, but then a lot of hands went up that wanted to attend. So I was wondering whether we could have a very short business meeting in either November or December, no speakers, just business meeting, and then go straight on the field trip, if that interested folks.
Yeah.
On a voluntary basis?
On a voluntary basis. Those who want to go, hop on the bus. Those who don't are done.
So that would be the third,
Septic tank, septic sewage.
Yes, to look at alternative septic systems over in Lake Alfred, over near Lakeland.
So we
So
can't
that
make
would
a
be-
motion to require the vice chair to go?
Make a motion.
I wanted to require you to go. Courtney, I think you make a motion requiring you to go.
You're on my list. I fish with Frank all the time, the mayor, you know that.
so we're talking about the third Thursday in November?
Friday.
The third Friday, yeah. Well, I was thinking,
right?
I had Thanksgiving on my mind, because I think that,
I think it's
oh,
before.
it's the following week. Okay,
Before.
good, good.
Well, so if you want to send Carol your preference for whether it be November or December, and we'll work with the Florida on-site wastewater people to see whether either of those dates work for them, and if it seems to make sense, we'll try to make that happen.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't care which month. I think it might be easier on you. None of us cared, and you, and whatever was easier for that facility. Because, I mean, do you care?
Yeah, no, I agree.
But I know some
Go
of you
ahead
really
and
want to
tell
go, and if those dates don't work, let us know.
Okay. Okay, great. Moving on, the stormwater cost share for substitute
Yes.
projects.
So last meeting, you considered this and you made a recommendation to the county commission that they look at, the way this plan was structured, we looked at the most cost-effective way to reach the stormwater load reduction goals of the plan, and averaged or added up the cost of all of those projects divided by the nitrogen removal benefit, came up with $88 a pound. At the last meeting, there was a proposal that instead of using that $88 average countywide, we look at the cost per sub-lagoon. And so the average cost for projects identified in the North Indian River Lagoon was $92 per pound of nitrogen. For the Banana River was $96 per pound, and for the Central Lagoon was $77. So you made a recommendation to the county commission that they consider amending the plan to reimburse municipalities based on that 96, 92, and 77, except for the Central Lagoon projects that were already in contract at 88, keeping those at the $88 level. The county commission discussed this at their last meeting, and they were not comfortable with supporting that motion. There was a perception that it was taking away funds and cost share from the communities along the Central Lagoon, and giving more incentive to communities along the northern Indian River and the Banana River. And so they asked staff to bring this item back to you, to let you think about it some more and think about their concerns and see if you have a different approach that you want to recommend.
Stephanie.
Virginia and I discussed this. I'm sure she probably discussed it with all of us yesterday, or maybe the day before. I got my phone call yesterday. But as we discussed this, the issue seems to be more related to the size of the project. And so the smaller projects are more expensive. When you're able to bundle larger projects, it reduces the cost. And so because of the nature of the areas in the Central Lagoon, they're larger projects, so they're typically cheaper. So instead of looking at it by basin, it seems more appropriate to look at it by the type of project. Is it a large project? Is it a smaller project? And it seems like potentially the beachside communities are going to have the smaller projects, which are going to lend themselves to be more expensive. And so rather than breaking it down into North, Banana River, Central, if we looked at it and made the recommendation that it be looked at the size of the project would help determine how much they were going to be paid, and that maybe looking at mainland versus beachside, so that again, we're not breaking it down into regions.
Commission districts.
There you go, commission districts, and taking some of the politics out of the situation, potentially. And so, again, as we get more data coming in, it's going to be more accurate as to what the actual costs are. But we're not going to have that until after the fact. And so I would move that we make the recommendation back to the county commission that they look at the size of the project and the location, whether mainland or beachside, and the smaller projects, the beachside projects would get a higher allotment. The mainland projects, the larger projects, we get the lower allotment.
And is there a second to that
I
motion?
second that.
Okay, and discussion.
Well, I would agree with everything you said. I agree that beachside, we have a higher land cost, and that drives a lot of the, we just bought an area for a stormwater pond, and it's about an acre, and we paid $565,000 for it. So that's the crux of the problem, and it's a small pond. So you're looking at with the treatment train all the way up, just trying to get your nutrient reduction out of that. So yes, it's a small project, but it's also land cost. I would venture to say that City of Melbourne and even like Cocoa Village, the downtowns, have a much more difficult time constructing these projects, largely because they're built out, they're having to retrofit things that are already there. So that's an issue. So I would say yes, the beachside has that problem, but you also have very similar problems in the downtown areas that may be captured with the small project. With that said, I think the better approach would be to ask the staff to bring what that would look like back to us first before we send that to the county commission to debate, because I think we need to probably see what those numbers look like first.
Let me offer an amendment to the main motion ask two things. One, that Virginia and your staff come back to us with your answer before we pass anything on the city commission. And secondly, to consider all major cost factors and not just economy of scale. And you're going to have to build a model for that. And the other thing I would say on this, not part of the amendment, is that this ought to be done in time to plug it into the next change to the Lagoon plan as the model will follow. And perhaps a comment there that how often it will be adjusted. So I make that amendment. I'll look for a second.
Well, I'd like to have a little more discussion because
Well, there's an amendment to, if it doesn't get a second, it dies.
No, second.
Thank you.
Now discussion, Charles.
Okay.
So, a couple things. So I think in a way this issue is playing out like a lot of the issues at the county commission where there's development agencies in North Brevard or Merritt Island, and there seems to be some territorial disputes and infighting. And I think this seems to be a little bit of that, at least that's my perception. And I don't know that if we put it, beachside versus mainland side, that that's just kind of changing the alignment of now it's beaches versus, the mainland versus, District 1 versus District 5. And I think the county commissioners, though, have to understand that pollution doesn't recognize any boundaries. So it really doesn't care what county commission or what municipality you're in. It's there, and it has to be dealt with. So I think the approach of the big project, medium project, whatever it falls into, is a really good way of looking at it. It might be a better way of approaching it to make sure we get the funding to go do what we're here to, recommend.
John?
So I did not get a phone call.
You got a whole bunch of emails on a different subject.
Yes, I did. I did not have an opportunity to speak with anyone. I echo what Charles just said. I watched your presentation and the members of the county commission, and I hope they watch this because I'm directly addressing them in this statement. The Lagoon does not recognize political boundaries, state, congressional district, or something so insignificant as a county commission district. That's absurd. The average we figured out was $88, and we recognize that there are differences in costs in the various basins. We agreed for the projects previously, and we agreed to honor the average fee, which is a little bit of overspending, $35,000 over 10 years. I can't even imagine. We agreed on a go-forward basis to pay based not on the average, but on the expected costs or the projected cost by the basins. It's not a cost shift. It's certainly not a redistribution of wealth, as some suggested. And in fact, if we pay $88 for $77 worth of value, that would be a gross abuse of taxpayer funds, and we would be failing in our jobs. This has absolutely nothing to do with political boundaries, and it has everything to do with the actual cost associated with nitrogen reduction projects. So I will allow smarter people on this group to come up with a solution, but the county commission, this is not political. It's about fixing the lagoon. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Okay, so, go ahead.
Just one comment to that, though, and that was part of the back and forth that Virginia and I had yesterday, is that anytime you take an average, there's higher and there's a lower. And the problem that Courtney pointed out and that we discussed, Melbourne Beach is in that central lagoon area, but it's much more expensive for them than the $88. And so you have to take that into consideration, that some of these communities have higher costs. They're not going to do a project if they're only going to get back less than what it's costing them. And so you have to look at it in more finite detail than I think we did.
That's a good point. Coco, too.
Just real quick, the last thing. I'm lucky to serve as the chairman of the Indiana Environmental Advisory Task Force, and we've asked at our meetings, can we do lagoon projects? Why can't we do lagoon projects? And obviously there isn't a cost. There's a cost to them, and they're not financially. The ones we've looked at were not They did cost more than we'd be able to
Yes.
afford. But that hasn't stopped us from doing things. And in groups in all these smaller municipalities, just because we can't get a project from here doesn't mean that projects aren't being done. The Brevard Zoo, their living shoreline, and Keep Brevard Beautiful, and MRC, other people have projects as well. So I just wanted to say that as one of those people that were talked about, it'd be nice to be able to get a lagoon project, but if we can't, we're still going to do what we can to help the lagoon.
Okay, and we've got 1 minute left on our time needed.
Move
I
to
will-
extend the meeting by 10 minutes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Opposed, okay. We've got a motion and
Amendment first. Amendment to the main motion is that Virginia be tasked to bring her model back to us before we make any recommendation to the county commission, and that it consider all major cost factors, including economy of scale.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The amended motion passes.
That's now the main motion.
Now it's, okay. So the main motion, to restate it, do you want to go ahead and?
Well,
No, I just did.
that is the motion now.
Okay, okay. Sorry for that.
No, we need to vote on the main motion. We amended the main motion.
Okay.
And now we need to see if we like it. Right.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Where's the agenda?
Can I ask a question about that? This is to address the year 0 and year 1 projects, right? The motion we just passed?
Substitute projects?
It would be all 10,
It'll roll forward.
Okay.
Yeah, substitute.
until we change it again. All 10 years until we change it again.
So year 0 and year 1 projects, they're all taken care of now? They're all done?
Yes.
We're just looking good, okay.
Okay, so in our remaining 9 minutes, do we have anything under new business that we can move to the next meeting?
Yes, we could move B and C to the next meeting. D, we have a new video to show you, a 2-minute video. You can decide whether you want that now or later. The Turkey Creek is fairly time-sensitive because it's an emergency FEMA request. The master muck dredging permit, you have the consultants here now in case you have any further questions about that.
Right. So we need to do A and E for sure, but I can make a motion to move B, C, and D to our next meeting. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Say aye. Okay, opposed? Passes. Okay, so to set up the master muck dredging permit?
So to do what was presented to you today, obviously that scope of work is a lot of work, and the dollar value is going to be larger than a staff threshold, so it will go to the county commission. So if we could have a motion from this committee on your recommendation to the county commission regarding that, it would be helpful, I think, in moving this along.
Just as a question, and I know that we're supposed to save more than $1 million above our cost, but roughly what does this contract scope of work cost?
The current scope is $158,121.
So
Got it.
that current scope does not get us all the way to, that's only the first 2 tasks in a 14 task or whatever scope. So we're scoping the scope and working with the agencies to understand all the data that they're going to need, all the hurdles that we're going to need to jump. And so we don't have a cost estimate for the total cost yet.
The first 2 tasks are going to establish what we need to do, and the remaining tasks is the heavy lifting, getting this permit in place. Meeting with all the
I'll just add, this will include all of the data collection for at least 3 specific muck dredging projects, because they'll need that level of detail the agencies will need that level of detail to understand what it is we're proposing to do.
Are
And
these
we
truck
have been
dollars?
paying, yes, we have been paying $300,000 to $500,000 apiece to get through that, to do all the data collection and get through that permitting process. So, you know, I would expect this price tag, what's going to the board immediately is the $158,000, but the next step beyond that will probably be, you know, it could be on the order of $1 million, but it will include
all the permits that we need for muck dredging. So that's.
A lot of this is already.
What period does that cover? Dredging for what period of time does that cover?
15 years.
15, all 15 years?
Yeah, a lot of this is being already done. When I look under future scope, a lot of that work is being conducted under other projects already.
For some small projects,
Right.
as opposed to the whole lagoon.
For projects that are already underway, right, we have a few of them that are already being permitted separately. But this would be, there's 17 project areas in the plan, and we only have 3 of those that are being worked on permitting-wise right now.
Still cheaper.
Funded out of excess revenues in year 0.
Yes.
I move that this committee recommend to the city committee, to the county commission, that we recommend to the county commission that it seriously consider in a favorable way the master muck dredging permit proposal.
Second programmatic.
Okay, and John Windsor seconded it?
It should be programmatic as opposed to master, I think that's.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's use the right words.
okay.
Master programmatic permit.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Turkey Creek?
Okay. See how many tabs I need to flip past. So Turkey Creek dredging was completed using legislative appropriations before we had Lagoon dollars. And that project removed over 200,000 cubic yards of muck from the mouth of Turkey Creek. So the good news is that 200,000 cubic yards of muck was not sitting there poised at the mouth of Turkey Creek to be blasted out all over acres and acres of lagoon as the hurricane happened. The bad news is that the way the equipment works is it has to stay off a certain distance from all the docks and all the seawalls, and there's some other muck upstream. And so other muck that was still in the creek system has now been moved by the storm to the basin that we had dredged. So there are 2 ways that we sort of try to quantify, describe the benefits of muck dredging. Actually, Dr. Windsor probably has a huge long list, but we are removing all of those nutrients that are contained in that muck. We're removing them from the system, and we are also, by doing that, we are reducing the flux of nitrogen and phosphorus from the muck up into the water column above. So we still have that first benefit of removing 200,000 cubic yards from the system. But because we now have a thin layer of muck across the area that we had previously cleaned, we've lost that flux benefit. So this is an engineered project. It should be eligible for FEMA cost share to restore that project that we just completed. FEMA cost share is 75% federal with 12.5% funding from the Department of Emergency Management. So what we are proposing here is but we have to have 12.5% local match to make this happen. So the question is whether the committee would like staff to recommend to the county commission that we move forward with a project to clean out that newly distributed muck from the Turkey Creek dredge area. And the local match that is, we've estimated here at $212,500, maybe it's $250,000 when we get done with all the bidding, to come from the Lagoon Trust Fund.
And this could be year 0 funding again?
Yes.
Right, balance forward from year 0.
Okay. I would move.
I will move.
Okay, John is second.
Well, I can't move,
I was gonna move.
let them do the motion.
Okay.
I so moved that we make that recommendation.
And I'll second.
And my only discussion is based on what Dr. Treffery showed us at the last meeting, and you got all this muck that was up under the docks and all that they couldn't get to. The storm brought it all into a place we can collect it. Completely support this. Great. See, I do pay attention.
It was a little over 8 million.
When you consider that we're paying 12% of the project.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
We're paying 100%, we just pay it to different governments.
Well.
Yeah, but we have a larger pool of people paying into that.
This raises the question of whether the Lagoon plan should accommodate this as something we recommend whenever we have such a storm event that cancels the flux mitigation that dredging does. It can't have dollars attached to it, and it can't plan in a year. But if that spirit is there, you could then, I think, go directly forward to the commission with the recommendation and not have to come to us.
That makes sense, except I think it's the topography of this particular location that may be very different than in other parts of the river. So.
What I'm saying is just a permissive toggle in the plan that says we endorse this as we did with Turkey Creek. That'd be a useful thing, I think, come forward next year.
Okay, will we have a motion?
I think that
There
we
is a
should
motion.
Yes.
review the numbers.
I'm sorry, John.
I think the numbers should come before us, not just go straight to the county commission.
But that's not a motion.
It was just a response.
Yeah, okay.
Can the numbers come back to us first if they're going to go out to bid for the?
She meant for
No,
future.
Yeah, she was talking
Not
about
for this project.
Right.
now, John.
Okay, so let's vote on this motion.
Mixing topics.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Okay, so we're chugging along here, and we're at the general public comment. Are there any, George?
I move we extend the meeting by
4
3
minutes to 12.
I move we extend the meeting by 4 minutes.
All those, a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Will go to 12:03.
My name is George Rosenfield. I am a retired environmental scientist. I apologize for being late. I'm sorry, but I had from 6 months ago, a VA clinic appointment I had to attend. You've covered the sewerage, which I was going to talk about, bring up, and I'm very pleased with what the decisions you've reached and what you're doing about it. I still don't trust the county commission to carry on with some of the work you want to do. They're still passing new developments. They're still building buildings, condos that without having proper facilities to remove the sewage and all that stuff. So they're still doing that. For example, the new development, they just, I think it was last week, they approved the new development up on North Merritt Island of approximately 25 acres, about half of it is wetland. We're going to put 40 plus dwellings on it, all with septic tanks. I addressed the Planning Commission last month a few weeks ago on it, and but the Planning Committee, and there were 35 other speakers from North Merritt Island and that were against that project, but the Planning Committee passed it, and when they went to the County Commission recently, the County Commission passed it even though so many people were against it. I understand it was mentioned the new high-rise condos down in the beach area, Satellite Beach area and Harbor Beach area are going up. They're I think they're 40 feet high or something. I don't know how many units there were in it. And they approved that without having the proper facilities to remove the sewage and everything else, rather than postponing it until the infrastructure could be built. So I just don't know what's going to happen, but I just, and I didn't attend that one. I wasn't able to attend it. So I just want to mention that we're fighting it, and I don't know, I hope we win. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Okay. Do we have any final comments by committee members?
I just wanted to clarify that the County Commission doesn't approve development in Satellite Beach, that's the City Council. And that development was approved 10 years ago. The sewer capacity over on the beach side is designed for development, not for rainwater. So when the development, when we assess concurrency, we get the capacity back from the utility. They give us the capacity of what the development is using in the city, not what's going to happen when we have a tropical storm or a hurricane and infiltrate the system. So I want people to understand that we have very little control over denying a development that there's public facilities for. So I want people to understand that. And the County Commission is very similar, in similar boat.
Okay. Okay. Yes, please.
Great discussions today. It's great to see so many different people here. Daniel, your point about the sewage, John, I agree with you what you said about the county commissioners, and I've addressed that.
Yes, me too.
Courtney's always really valued these every meeting. But I agree with what Stephanie said. She's walked away. That in the 10 years, the lagoon's going to be changing. The issues are going to be coming up. Hurricanes are called a natural disaster for a reason. And it just is exasperating an already troubled lagoon. Vinny, your point about we're trying to clean up 50 years of them dumping directly into the lagoon was excellent. But, the sewage releases are definitely going to be an issue with the public. What the public thinks is going to be the reality of what we're doing. So, the pH is going to, it's the pH in our bodies changes and it causes disease, and that's what's going to happen to the lagoon. So, I know it's a fine line of, it's not, we're not supposed to talk about the sewage releases, but I think that is part of what we're doing.
I appreciate everyone's contribution today. It was really a rich meeting, and the patience and contributions of the public as well. So let's adjourn with that.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.